is the solution to your problem. And I would repeat what Imani said very eloquently before. All of the government initiatives are prefixed with the notion that it's all a done deal. It's going to happen. You don't have any control. And government is there to help you extract what few concessions you are able to extract. And we have a very mature, complex, and developed political system to get you sucked into that false consciousness. It's called representative democracy. You elect your city council people. You have city agencies with people who represent the public interest and will work for you. And all you have to do is figure out how you can get in there, how you can get at the table. And the first thing that you will be told if you're opposing a zoning change or you're opposing a major project that's going to result in massive displacement in your neighborhood, the first thing you'll be told is, gee, you know, we totally agree with you, but look, it's going to happen anyway. We don't have any power. So when you start from a position of powerlessness, you end that way too. You walk away with a few crumbs. Historically, and I have studied the history of struggle and housing struggles and zoning struggles and community struggles in New York City. It's a very long and beautiful history. This really is this is really the United States of amnesia because we don't know our own history. The last 100 years gives us many lessons. When 100 years ago, workers in New York City were being forced out by slumlords, they organized, and guess what they got? Rent control. Rent control didn't just happen overnight. It's not something that was gifted to people. People fought for it. And then the urban renewal program in the 1950s, which at that time was called Negro removal, and was displacing African American, Latino, especially Puerto Rican communities. People fought against that. And that was a struggle that was intimately connected to the civil rights movement. And we won. Out of that came the first community-generated alternative plan, when a small group of folks in the Lower East Side got presented with a plan to wipe out 12 city blocks. They said, no way, we stay, and they developed their own alternative plan. It took them 50 years, but they got the plan implemented. And they had to struggle 50 years in order to do that. So there are no quick fixes. There are no immediate solutions. And without struggle and without the willingness to go deep and to defend your interests and project your interests as an alternative, you will wind up walking away from the table with meaningless concessions. And that's what this is a shameless plug. I'm plugging my book, which is coming out. I do have some flyers here for those who are interested. It's called Zoned Out, Race Displacement and City Planning in New York City. And it's about how all of this works and how it's worked for a century. Because New York City doesn't do planning. They essentially accommodate real estate deals. And we have, and the community planning that's been done has been done from the bottom up. And we have spent 20 years trying to get the city to accept it as the norm. But But the real estate interests are so powerful in this city that it has been a tough road to hoe. Today, well, through the years of the Bloomberg administration, continuing to the de Blasio administration, they've adopted the discourse of community planning. And in response to the outcry against their rezoning proposals, they have offered to sit down with people in communities and talk about the long-term future of the neighborhood. This is not community planning. It's driven by the interest in pushing a rezoning. What is a rezoning? People have mentioned it several times here. What it does is, when the zoning is changed, it can increase the value of land and the capacity to develop that land. And if you're in a community, places like Bed-Stuy, East New York, which have 3- and 4-family homes and low-rise buildings, but the potential for real estate development is ripe, you need to change the rules that govern how much can be developed. So the city comes up with a rezoning. They did it first under the de Blasio administration, East New York. South Bronx is next. Flushing is on target, but has been taken off the agenda for the moment. Inwood is on the agenda. And in all of these cases, all communities of color, land is being occupied by working class people, low-income people, people of color, whose land is worth a great deal of money to investors who don't know what to do with all the money they have. So we started this movement. I'm going to end just by giving an introduction to the community-based planning, and say that I think the basis for doing any kind of a conscious planning for your neighborhood and community is being willing to upset the way business is done in the city. And that means stopping the machine. And if we go back to history, this is the way we won everything. By willing to stop the development machine and use civil disobedience, protest, every technique at our disposal, as well as peaceful organizing and talking to our city council people and other elected officials. And I'm happy to say that our host, Alicia Boyd here from Movement to Protect the People, has been out in the lead, upsetting the apple cart in Prospect Lefferts Gardens, and did something which is totally unprecedented. She got wind that there was that city planning department was talking to the local community board about the possibility of rezoning the neighborhood. Well, if you follow the script, then you go to the community board, you sit there and you listen and you talk, and the city officials will be telling you, well, nothing to worry about, it's only a study. No, it's not just a study. It's the first act in a drama that ends in upzoning your community so that the homeowners and tenants who live there now won't be able to afford to stay. And so that's the first step. It's not the end of the game, but if you do nothing, if you don't take that first step, there will be no game. And our next speaker is Ana Orozco from Uprose, United Puerto Ricans of Sunset Park, the oldest Puerto Rican neighborhood organization in New York City, and a longtime fighter for community-based planning and environmental justice. And she will talk to us about how the talk about rezoning the industrial waterfront and the talk about building a light rail line along the Brooklyn-Queens waterfront ending in Sunset Park are discussions that could end up in the wrong place. So anyway, I'm going to ask Alicia to start out.
Hi, my name is Alicia Boyd, and I represent the movement to protect the people. However, there's been a constant misunderstanding that I am the only person that's working with MTOPP. And this is done for two reasons. One, to try to discredit the organization and say, oh, it's just Alicia, she's just a rabble-rouser. Don't pay her no mind. And also for people not to understand that this is a movement of people. So before I wanted to move forward, I want to just recognize some of the MTOPP members. Are you here? Please stand up. We got Maxine Barnes, who's been arrested. She's a homeowner, a professor. You know, we put our bodies on the line for you guys. Give it up to Maxine. It's not easy spending a night in jail, okay? Okay, this woman has put her body on the line for us. Where's Ann Pruden? Ann, are you here? She's always working. Ann, I told her to be here. Oh, she's outside working. Ann was really, has been organizing for the last 20 years. When we started, I didn't know what to do. She was saying, oh, I'll get you flyers, I'll get you bed. I said, really? How do you make them? She said, don't worry, I got it all. And she just made it happen. She really is the person that helps us organize. And we got Lorraine. Where's Lorraine? There's Lorraine Thomas in the back. Now let me tell you something about Lorraine. It takes guts being in a community board and standing up for your rights. Lorraine does that, okay? She speaks for the people. She's making her 2 years count, because you know she's not coming back, okay? You only got 2 years, and if the borough president doesn't like you, you're done. But at least she's making those 2 years count. Make it count, people. People get on the community board, and then they got, oh, I gotta be quiet because then Eric Adams won't reappoint me. Fuck that. Speak up. You got 2 years. Make that shit count. I don't understand that. Lorraine is making it count. Okay? Thank you, Lorraine. Okay, so I just wanted to give out a prop, and there's a few other people that are not here. Elizabeth Mackin. She's been our person who does a lot of our research, because we are researchers. We're educators. I mean, we're people, but, you know, we're homeowners, and we're tenants, and we're mothers, and we're grandmothers. And we said, hey, this is our community, and you do not have the right to come into our community and tell us what you're going to do to it. Excuse me? No. And we have fought that good fight. And we are the only community that has been able to stop a rezoning. But I just wanted to go over a little bit. Do we have any of those slides? We do have the slide. Can I get that slide up, please? Okay, while they're doing it, Professor Angotti already told you about the rezoning. So let me just bring it down a little bit to my community that we're in. We live in CB9. It's from Eastern Parkway all the way down to Clawson Avenue, and from the park and the garden all the way over to Utica Avenue. This is a large area. It used to be almost 80% black. Now it's hovering around 60%. It's a medium income community. And the reason why the developers were targeting it is because of the proximity to the park and the garden. They wanted to gentrify this community, put up sky rises for those park views and those garden views. Oh, it's next to the museum, it's next to the library, and all the things that we valued in the community, because that's what I liked about moving here. But they also saw the value and decided, okay, we're going to flip this community. So, as Professor Angotti said, they started out with the scam, oh, we're just going to do a study. Don't worry, it's just a study, it's harmless. But it's not, because that's when all the deals are done. They sit for 2 years with developers behind closed doors, looking at each block and deciding, how many buildings can we get up there? And they do the math. Okay, so you need to give them that zoning. And during that 2 years, they're coming to you, and they got the big clipboards, and they're writing down all the information. But honey, after 2 years, when you see that clipboard, it's nothing that you asked for. It's everything that the developers wanted. And you know something? There's nothing you can do about it. You have no legal rights. You start a rezoning process study, you're done. That's it. So we found that out, thanks to Professor Angotti, on our own research. And so we said, okay, wait a minute, back up. And we organized, and we got a group of people, just like you, came out and protested. And then you know what they did? Started sending the cops on us. Surrounding us. Wouldn't let us come into our meetings. Starting arresting us when we would stand up and say no. Frightening the community. And you know, a lot of people stopped coming. We had 500 people one time. We were down to 50 people. But you know, those 50 people hung in there with us and kept coming, because you gotta understand, you gotta hang in there with us. Just because it's gonna get rough doesn't mean you gotta walk away, because of course it's gonna get rough. They want your land. When was taking land gonna be easy? Damn, I'm already up time. Okay, so let me go fast. I'm gonna try to go fast and tell you what our strategy was. Okay, so our basic strategy was don't feed the beast. Don't participate in the process. Don't allow the process to happen. Don't allow them to have the meetings. Don't allow them to sit and talk and discuss. No, we don't want the discussion, because you know, when we sit at the table, we are powerless. So what did they do? What they've done is they've got alternative organizations in the community that want to create their own study, funded by our local politicians, of course. Because they're saying, oh, but they're going to do it anyway, so we need to be sitting at the table. So they convince people, oh, sit at the table. And so we have to keep saying no. So we had to file lawsuits against our own neighbors. But that's what happens sometimes. We had to file lawsuits against the community board. We had to do that. So what's the key? The key is to understand that this is your community. It doesn't belong to them. And you have rights to say no. And not to go along with the bullshit. Because there's a lot of bullshit. Don't politicians stand up and parade in front of you and talk about how they're creating affordable housing and all that stuff? Don't you see the writing on the wall? What affordable housing? I mean, the taller the buildings, the higher the homeless rate. I mean, how does that work? The more buildings you build, the more homeless people. I mean, how does that work? Are we not seeing that? So why are you listening to them? I tell you, the next time you see your politician, you know what you need to say to them? Boo. Let's practice that, people. We're going to practice that. Make believe I'm a politician. We got to stop being nice. We got to stop being nice. We got to start being firm with them and telling them, no, you are not going to take our community and give it to developers. No, we do not want to sit at the table with a rezoning plan. No, no, no. And every time I see you, I'm going to boo. See, because they hear the boos, because they're so used to the claps. But them boos, they ring real hard. And everybody else looks at the boo and figure out, why is that person booing? Maybe I should be booing too. So I'm going to be talking a little bit more afterwards, a little bit more in depth. I didn't realize the 7 minutes was up so fast. Okay, but anyway, thank you.
Environmental. Let me just add a few, things about context, because we've been talking about community boards. Does everybody know what a community board is? Yeah, okay, good.
No.
No? Okay. There are 59 community boards. They only were started in 1975. And you know why they were started in 75? The Civil Rights Movement. Neighborhoods erupted, protested, and the elites in the city got together and said, well, we need a better way to sort of get people involved in a civilized way. Community boards. And then they said, but we can't give them too much power. And that's what they did. They created this system, 59 community boards, up to 50 appointed members. They're appointed by borough presidents. Borough presidents are left over from the old political machine. They're patronage mills, basically. And so they appoint 50 of their favorite folk, and they serve at their behest. They get no salary. They get no training. They get no technical support. So what are community boards going to do? Now, if you happen to live in a professional community where there are a lot of people have a lot of spare time and money, they can do a lot by, finding the ways to influence decisions. But most of our community boards don't have the resources to function. So they become kind of a place for theater. And a theater that none of the people who make decisions go to. And when they do go, it makes no difference. They make fun of the process. They say, oh, it's a dysfunctional system. Look, people getting up and yelling and screaming. Yeah, you created it that way. So that's why, but community boards are our closest organism of government to our neighborhoods. So we have to do something with them. So I think it's just important to put that on the table. Now I want to ask Anna to talk about Sunset Park. Uprose.
Hello, I'm Anna Orozco. Can folks hear me? I work with Uprose. We are an environmental justice organization in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. We are the oldest Latino community-based organization in all of Brooklyn. We're celebrating our 50th anniversary this year. We have always organized specifically with the Sunset Park community. And as an environmental justice organization, we've taken on issues of polluting facilities in the neighborhood. It is a low-income community of color. It's predominantly Latino and Asian. It is home to 3 power plants. The Gowanus Expressway goes through the neighborhood, but there's actually not an entrance onto the Gowanus in the neighborhood itself. People live very close to the Gowanus. There is an industrial waterfront. We're home to one of the largest industrial waterfronts in New York City and one of the last remaining industrial waterfronts. So the industrial waterfront provides a lot of jobs to the community. Sunset Park is one of the largest walk-to-work communities in New York City. And those jobs are jobs that pay good salaries. They're blue-collar jobs. They're jobs that enable people